Research and Education Center, Thomas Jefferson University, Philadelphia. He is one of those on whom we are supposed to be proud and who are making the present and future of ultrasound in Pakistan. He is one of those for whom we have to pray for healthy long lives, because they are going to do something for our country for this modality of ultrasound. He is a man of skill and expertise, and I always enjoy traveling with him. He will be talking about ultrasound of thyroid. Dr. Nasir Hamid.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amir Gilani. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is always difficult to talk after our teachers, and Professor Srivastav is our senior. He had a wonderful lecture on high resolution ultrasound of the muscles and tendons. So may I have the lights off, please? I am going to talk about thyroid ultrasound. Personally, I feel that the ultrasound of the thyroid should not be used to give us the diagnosis, pathological diagnosis. The major role of ultrasound in patients with any enlargement or focal mass in thyroid is to differentiate whether that mass is a solid or cystic mass. Ultrasonography of the thyroid gland accompanied with radionuclide scanning and FNA under ultrasound guidance can direct you to the precise diagnosis of the lesions seen on ultrasound. If you go for diagnosis only on the basis of criteria of the ultrasound, you will see in the coming slides that the findings of different pathologies are so much mixing with one another that it is not easy to make the direct diagnosis of specific pathology on the basis of findings of ultrasound alone. Little bit of anatomy in the beginning, as I have the habit of going through the anatomy of every organ that I teach. Thyroid is an H-shaped endocrine gland which is located between the trachea and the stap muscles of the neck. It has two lateral lobes, all of you know, and a midline portion which is the isthmus that connects the two lobes. Sometimes we have an congenital variant which extends upward from the isthmus superiorly and is known as pyramidal lobe, which is the embryological remnant. This slide is going to show you the thyroid, the right lobe, left lobe, the pyramidal lobe, and the isthmus. So sometimes you are able to see this superior extension from the isthmus, which is the embryological remnant and is the pyramidal lobe. I will not go into the details of the relations, but few things that you should remember is that the trachea lies immediately posterior to the isthmus. As trachea has gas shadows, so we are going to see the artifacts and we are unable to see anything posterior to it. Second thing, the carotid sheath along with the carotid vessels and the vagus nerve, they lie on the posterolateral side of each lobe. This is the carotid sheath. And the stap muscles lie on the anterolateral side of both lobes of the thyroid gland. Now, scanning technique. While performing the thyroid ultrasound, the patient lies supine. We achieve the hyperextension of the neck by placing a pillow under the shoulder of the patient. The examiner should be at the head of the patient with elbow resting on the table to avoid inconvenience straining on the hand of the practice. The physician who is doing the ultrasound should not overstrain his arm while performing the ultrasound. High frequency transducer is used because we don't need the penetration and we need good resolution, and for that purpose we usually use a transducer with frequency from 6 to 10 megahertz. Although the transducers are available up to 13 megahertz, and in cases where the thyroid gland is small or the patient is thin and lean, we can opt for higher frequencies. Conversely, if we have a patient with big neck or who is very obese, so we will need to go to the lower frequency range and we will use a transducer with a frequency of 5 MHz. You know that in ultrasound we need to obtain the cross-sectional imaging by taking the slides of the organ or part being examined, and in this case, in the case of thyroid, we do sweeping, obtaining the slices of both the lobes and isthmus separately. The images that must be made include these 5 slices, that we should have the transverse views of the superior, middle and inferior part of each lobe, and we must have the longitudinal views of the lateral and medial part of each lobe. So these are the 5 different cross sections that you must take while examining the thyroid gland. Normal thyroid gland, when seen on ultrasound, has homogeneous ecotexture, and the echogenicity is more than the adjacent hypoechoic neck muscles. Thyroid capsule is thin and echogenic line which surrounds the gland, and the capsule can calcify, especially in patients who have disorders of the calcium metabolism. Color flow Doppler imaging of the normal thyroid gland will demonstrate minimal flow, and that too especially at the poles of the gland. That's how a normal thyroid gland is visible on ultrasound. In the center, this is the trachea with air, and you can see the reverberation artifacts because of air. One lobe, the right lobe and the left lobe, and immediately anterior to the trachea is the isthmus. Another image, a wider image showing whole of the gland, and you can see the carotid vessels along the lateral side of both the lobes, the internal jugular vein and the carotid artery. This is the right lobe, the left lobe, the isthmus, trachea with air in it. Now the first thing that we encounter is the size. We need to see if the thyroid has a normal size or it is enlarged in size. So the average size of each thyroid lobe is 4 to 5 cm in length, 1.5 to 2.5 cm in anteroposterior dimension, and 4 to 5 cm in transverse dimension. The isthmus is located in the inferior half of the gland as it connects the two lobes. So this is the right lobe, the transverse image, the longitudinal image. The easiest way to measure the thyroid is to take this longitudinal image of the lobe, and on the longitudinal image measure this anteroposterior diameter. Any thyroid gland with anteroposterior diameter of a lobe on sagittal image more than 2.5 cm is considered to be enlarged thyroid gland. Now in abdomen we have, or in the pelvis for that matter, we have the great advantage of comparing the echogenicities of organs with one another, and that gives a lot of help to us while differentiating between diffuse parenchymal changes. This is not so in case of thyroid. We don't have any structures or organs adjacent to the thyroid with which we can compare its echogenicity in diffuse conditions, especially the thyroiditis. In hepatitis, we say that the echogenicity of the liver is reduced by comparing its echogenicity with the adjacent kidney. In renal parenchymal disease, we say that the echogenicity of the kidneys is increased by comparing it with the adjacent liver. But in cases of thyroid, we have this difficulty that we don't have another organ close to it with which we can compare the echogenicity to judge the diffuse parenchymal structures, especially the inflammatory changes which are diffusely involving the gland. For that matter, color Doppler can give us a little bit of help, and color Doppler imaging sonography may be useful to evaluate the vascularity of the thyroid gland or of the localized masses that are seen on ultrasound. Color Doppler sonography can distinguish prominent thyroid vessels from a cystic mass. If you see a cystic structure inside the thyroid gland, you will say that it is a thyroid cyst, but if you have a color Doppler, you just turn it on and you can say whether it is a true cyst or a prominent intrathyroidal vessel. In addition, color Doppler sonography can be used to identify the vascular abnormalities adjacent to the structures that are lying in the adjacent to the thyroid gland. In patients with hyperthyroid goiter, color Doppler shows a diffuse increase in vascularity of the whole gland. So a patient with thyroiditis or goiter, whole of the vascularity of the gland is increased, and various color Doppler patterns for nodular lesions have been classified. When you see a lesion inside the thyroid gland, you turn the Doppler on and you can classify the vascular pattern of that lesion. We say a lesion is having type 1 vascularity if you don't see any blood flow in or around that lesion. It is type 2 vascularity when you see flow around the lesion, that is perinodular blood flow, but there is no vascularity inside the lesion. And type 3 vascularity when there is marked intranodular blood flow. And as a general rule for malignant masses elsewhere in the body, type 3 vascularity, which is having a high intranodular blood flow, is one of the signs suggesting the malignant nature of the lesion. First image, you see a thyroid gland. There is a mass which is complex but predominantly cystic. You have turned on your Doppler and you don't see any flow in the mass, so this is type 1 vascularity. Type 2 vascularity, you see multiple nodular masses inside the thyroid gland, and the Doppler is showing, even the power Doppler is showing, that the flow is only around the lesion and there is minimal to no flow inside the mass. And no need to describe this, it is a type 3 vascularity where you see marked flow in and around the focal mass. So thyroid enlargement, as I said earlier, an anteroposterior dimension greater than 2.5 cm on longitudinal scan is highly suggestive of an enlarged thyroid gland, and this is an example. This is the superior inferior image, sagittal image. So this is the superior side, here is the inferior side, this is anterior, this is posterior, and we measure the anteroposterior diameter of the thyroid lobe, which is 2.9 cm, greater than 2.5 cm, and it is an enlarged thyroid gland. Now we will discuss few of the common pathologies that you see while performing the thyroid ultrasound and their presentation on ultrasound. First is goiter. Goiter is a vague and general term used for enlarged thyroid gland. It may be diffuse enlargement, it may be nodular enlargement, but any thyroid gland which is enlarged is a goiter. The increase in the volume of the thyroid gland in goiter is gradual, and it may be associated with normal thyroid functions, that is the patient is euthyroid, or it may have decreased thyroid functions, hypothyroid, or increased abnormal production of hormones, that is increased function, which is a hyperthyroid goiter. Euthyroid goiter is the most common, and iodine deficiency is usually the cause. Physiological conditions such as puberty and pregnancy also may induce goiter, but these enlargements usually disappear with treatment. Now here is a multinodular goiter, enlarged thyroid gland, and you see multiple solid nodular masses. Another example of nodular goiter with type 2 vascularity, multinodular goiter. Now nodular diseases, if you scan a thyroid and you see a nodule in it, the nodular diseases is the most commonly